Hi, and welcome to the Heart of a Perfectionist podcast. I'm your host, Tegan Thompson. I'm a book lover, a chocoholic, and an INTJ living in a world filled with extroverts. I made this podcast to share my experiences and struggles as an introverted perfectionist, and to bring the inner workings of an introvert's mind to introverts and extroverts alike. So grab a cup of tea and get comfortable. It's time to unmute. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Heart of a Perfectionist podcast. This week we will be talking about the importance of defining yourself and creating your own path in life. As an introvert, I have constantly been told who I was, what I am, and what that means for me by everyone surrounding me, that I never had the opportunity to learn about myself on my own. And I still experience this to this day, but I've learned to kind of take everything with a grain of salt and kind of just define myself and say who I am for me and not worry about what everyone else is saying. So I'm kind of just going to talk about my experience with that a little bit and how you can use that in your own life to define yourself and kind of create your own path for who you are, what you want to do, and all that kind of stuff, okay? So growing up as an introvert, it was really hard for me, looking back on it, because I was mistaken as shy by my family, friends, teachers, coaches, etc., right? Like, pretty much everyone that I encountered viewed me as shy, and they made sure to let me know that they viewed me as shy, and that because they viewed me as shy, I was shy. And so I would hear things like, oh, you're so shy, or why are you shy? You need to talk more. Being shy is going to make your life difficult. Or when I do talk, sometimes it'd be like, oh, you can talk? Or when I would do something or not want to do something, I would hear, oh, that's because you're shy. And I heard these things so often that I began to believe them from an early age. And as a child, I didn't know what an introvert was or how it could appear similar with being shy to society, right? Because people can mistake someone who's sitting back from a crowd or a group, kind of observing, not really talking or being reserved, as shy, rather than them being an introvert. And those characteristics can be applied to either of those situations. And you can go back to an earlier episode that I did that kind of explained the differences. I think it was episode 1, where I talked about what an introvert is and how that differs from being shy. But, I mean, like, being shy and people telling me I was shy and me thinking that, it became so ingrained into who and what I thought my personality was, that I used it to describe myself to other people. I would introduce myself that way. I'd be like, oh, hi, I'm Tegan, and by the way, I'm shy, just so you know. And it's kind of weird now that I think about it, but that's kind of how I viewed myself, because that's how everyone else viewed me. And I also used it as an excuse for some of my behaviors, right? So like, I don't like talking on the phone. I'd be like, that's because I'm shy. Or I don't like meeting new people or talking to random people, and I'd be like, oh, that's because I'm shy, right? And I'm 22, and I'm still learning about myself. There's a lot to still learn about me. But now I'm recognizing that I'm not shy. I'm really not shy. At least that's how I view it, which may come to a surprise for many people. And I say this because when I really think about it and how I interact with other people, I am comfortable talking to new people when I need to. And I can easily make friends. I've been told my whole life, oh, you have hardly any friends. That's because you're shy. It's like, no, maybe it's just because I like having a small group of friends. But I can easily make friends. And I have done this with several of my coworkers over the past few months. And it's really great to make new friends. But just like some of these things that people told me are reasons why I'm shy aren't actually true, because I do them, and people either they don't see it or they choose to ignore it, and that is part of the problem with other people labeling you. So I'm also understanding the qualities about me that may confuse others into believing I'm shy, and those things include being reserved, or not engaging in like open conversation right away with people, and that I like to observe people or environments or situations for long periods of times. Often it can be about like weeks, or depending on it could even be months, before engaging in open conversation. And what I mean by open conversation, it does not mean I don't say anything, that I don't talk at all. I just mean like being comfortable to engage in like small talk or any type of conversation, really. I mean, I can like talk to people, answer questions or ask questions, or kind of do like minimum talking, kind of, not really getting to know people. But for me, that's because I like to observe, right? And I'm going to get to that in just one second. And another thing that I do is that I don't really like engaging with people when there's a lot of uncertainties, and this includes phone calls, asking questions in like the store, like when you can't find something and you have to ask like an employee, and I hate doing that. Dates or anything kind of on that lines that can be uncertain. You don't know what will happen, because I haven't seen this person before. I don't know who they are, or I haven't engaged with them before. And that's why I like to observe so much, is because I can really get to know someone that way. And I've mentioned this before in a different episode, but spoiler alert, people do lie. So, for me, talking to someone does not help me get to know them, because I don't know whether or not they're telling the truth, or if I'm really getting to know them, or just like the person they want me to get to know. And like observing people, watching what they do, watching how they interact with people, or how they handle different situations, helps me get to know people a lot better than most people think. And that is one of the biggest reasons that I observe people and environments and situations before diving in and really engaging, so that I can kind of get a gauge on how I should interact, when I should interact, like what kind of style of interaction I should do, because there's always different types of styles and different ways of doing things. So I had to understand that those were qualities about me that are important to me and that make me, that aren't me being shy. It's just more the introverted side of me that kind of shows through, and kind of understanding that those things are often viewed as being shy. And so when I hear people say, oh, why are you doing that? Oh, that's probably because you're shy. Then it's kind of like, well, that's how they see it. I know that's not what it really is. And so kind of not letting other people's views and expectations being placed on me kind of affect how I view myself. I want to make sure that I understand myself and learn about myself, so that I can't let other people put those labels and definitions on me. So before I close out, I just want to say, it's so important not to label people. And I mean this in ways such as saying, oh, that person's shy, or that person's, I don't know, however else you can label people that don't necessarily, that may not necessarily line up with who they actually are. If someone comes up to you and says, well, I'm this, and I truly believe this about myself, then that's different. Like, for me, I view myself as a biracial woman. That's who I am. You can call me that. You can say I'm a woman. You can say I'm biracial. I even identify as Black. So those are things that you could label me as, because those are things that I have figured out for myself. But labeling someone as shy or rude or dumb, anything like that, is a view that you have of them based on the behaviors you've observed. And those are only behaviors you observe when you are around them, and they have behaviors that you don't observe when you're not around them. So you don't really truly know who they are, and placing those labels on them is restrictive and something that we really shouldn't do. And when I say this, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying, oh, you can't label an action as rude, right? Because there are actions and words that people use that are rude, but a person being rude is not necessarily true. And I guess if someone wants to say they're rude, that's different, but I don't think I've ever encountered a person who said, oh yeah, I'm rude and you can call me rude. That's a little different. But yeah, so kind of stepping away from labeling people with these names and these titles that they may not identify with. And then learning about yourself in order to be able to define yourself, right? You want to be able to say, this is who I am. This is who I have understood myself to be, and letting people know that so that they cannot label you with things you don't identify with, right? You want to be able to prevent people from labeling you with things you don't identify with, and then speaking up with yourself when people do label you with things you don't identify with, right? Always speak up for yourself. And then also knowing that you can always relabel yourself or remove labels, right? Nothing is stuck in one place. Nothing is set in stone. People change, and you aren't going to change through your entire life, and that's okay. So something you might identify with now may not be something you identify with in 10 to 15 years, and that is okay, right? Just always knowing that it's important to speak up for yourself and making sure that you're heard so that you can define yourself, so that you can kind of create your own path for the person you are and who you want to be and how you want other people to see you, right? So I've been trying to do that a little bit more, speaking up for myself, right? I still hear to this day, I'm not even kidding, I hear this still from everyone I encounter, oh, you're shy. And I still have to, well, I'm starting to, not still have to because I didn't do it in the past, but I'm starting to come back with, I'm not shy. If that's how you want to see me, that's fine, but I'm not shy. Please don't call me shy. Like, I'm not shy, and I want them to know that. And a lot of people who know me for a long time don't quite believe it, but I believe it, and that's what's important, right? Yeah, so just always speaking up for yourself, and yeah. So thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Heart of a Perfectionist podcast. If you liked it, or if you learned anything new, please go share it with a friend. And as always, have a good weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again next week on the Heart of a Perfectionist podcast.